Good evening, everyone. How are we doing? I am Chris, and I am back with another review. Just a bit of a mishap there on this. I'm still working out the kinks on this, so I'm now using Streamlabs for all of my streaming. I used to use StreamYard, and I've had some bad experiences with it, so there is going to be a bit of a learning curve when it comes to this live streaming. Case in point, I just went live on a random new live stream. It wasn't tied to this Mission Impossible one. So anyway, now that that's out of the way, we can get on with the review. Hope you're all doing well. I am here tonight to talk about, as I just mentioned, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, which is the 7th installment in the Mission Impossible franchise. These films just keep getting better and better, honestly, as they keep going. So I'm just like, keep making them. But when they announced Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 and Part 2, they were going to be filmed back-to-back, with Part 2 being released next year. I think it's June sometime, late June, probably around the same time as now, actually, maybe into July. And yeah, also this film, I actually thought this might be a combined cost, a combined budget for both this and for Part 2, but I don't think it is. I'm pretty sure just for Part 1 alone it cost $290 million to make, which again is one of the most expensive films ever made. I don't know what it is with films this year. The last sort of like 3 blockbuster movies that have been released, you had The Flash, which had an enormous budget, not to mention all the reshoots that they had to do there. You had Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, which again, massive budget. I think that was like 300 mil, so 10 million more than this one. And then this one's up there too. The difference is that unlike those 2 other movies, this one is actually pretty good. So there was that. Derpy and dude, I wish there was a way that I could highlight comments on this channel. I actually don't think there is. So I've seen before there's like a widget you can download or something where you can highlight comments. I don't know how to do that, so I'm just gonna have to shout out your comment just like this, I'm afraid. Derpy Entertainment in the chat says, "How was it? Was it the best one? And does the setup hit? Does the setup hit for Part 2? That's all I want to know." Okay, rapid fire then. I won't go into masses of spoilers with this one, but you know, I'll get into spoilers later on down the line. How was it? I had a good time at the cinema. Is it my favourite one? No. I think coming out of the cinema, I definitely had stronger opinions on Mission Impossible Fallout, which was the previous one, the 6th one. I prefer the 5th one to this, Rogue Nation. And it's been a long time since I've seen it, but at this point I'd probably say that I prefer the 4th one as well as this one. That's not saying that this is a bad film, not by any stretch of the imagination. Tom Cruise knows how to make a fucking movie. He knows how to make an entertaining movie, a good action movie, and there is a lot of action in this. There really is. I would say some of the action scenes in the film, there's an elongated car chase in Rome. That's sort of like your end of Act 1 action scene, I'd probably say. And it goes on for about 5 or 10 minutes too long. And that seems to be a thing with most action films now, in all honesty, and this was true of Indiana Jones as well, is that the action scenes are just really relentless. They're well done, and unlike that movie, they're well shot and well choreographed and everything like that, and they're entertaining to watch. They just outstay their welcome, at least for me, just a little bit too long. So yeah, coming out of this movie, I still had a great time for it. I'm still very much looking forward to the next one. The music, the score and everything, it's entertaining. It's quite up there in runtime. And I'm going to have to see how Part 2 turns out like, because as it stands right now, I'm watching this movie and I'm thinking, I don't understand why this needs to be a 2-parter. The story, it really feels like a Bond film, in all honesty, and I've made this this comparison before, in that these Mission Impossible films have kind of gone from strength to strength as they've gone on. Certainly from, I want to say, like Mission Impossible 4 onwards, they've really hit their stride. And I find these way more gripping, way more entertaining than all of the recent Bond films with Daniel Craig. I think it's a fair comparison because both are in the spy, action genre, so I think it's a fair comparison to make. To me, the set pieces, the tone, the episodic quality to all of the Mission Impossible films are kind of everything that the new James Bond films are all lacking. The new James Bond films went for an overarching narrative, which I don't think was ever the case really from the get-go. There's definitely a massive tonal shift with the recent James Bond films. I don't want to make this a James Bond review, but I thought it was worth mentioning because with this one, of course, I've seen the other the previous Mission Impossible films, but I haven't watched them again recently. And I never tend to go back and watch the previous installments before a new one comes out. So when I sit in that theatre, very much, and that was the case with this one as well, I'm reminded of previous characters that have been in other installments, and I have to try and that's my own fault. I could quite easily go back and watch the previous 6 before seeing this one, so that is on me. But I don't mind, because I'm kind of, it's a new adventure. There's a loose continuity with, you know, characters returning and referring to previous events, but you don't have to watch those previous ones in order to have a good time or be entertained by this one, and that was kind of the case with this one for me. Does the setup hit for part 2? It kind of does. It's not. I was expecting some kind of. It's difficult to say without spoiling. I was expecting some kind of big twist, maybe, or big, huge cliffhanger. You think like. Well, I will say this. I mean, this is in the trailer. The Orient Express train sequence on the bridge is the third action set piece of the movie. So when I say it ended on a cliffhanger, I guess it kind of does in a literal sense, but in terms of plot or narrative, it doesn't leave you with like a, hey, got your moment, or, you know, next time, come back next time, or it's similar to how Across the Spider-Verse, and I'm not going to spoil the ending for that, but something really big and dramatic happens in the final scene of that movie, which left everyone just gasping like, oh, we need the next one now, and you don't really get that one with this one. It obviously leaves it open-ended for the next one. It keeps some characters around. It kind of writes characters out of this one midway through the movie. And like Ving Rhames, for example, like, I've got to do some technical shit. I've got to understand what's going on here, so I'm just going to lay low for a while. And he's out the movie at like the halfway point. So they're keeping certain characters out of it that will probably come back to it, but it seems like this is what they're doing with a lot of action movies now. Across the Spider-Verse is going to be a 2-parter. You've got the Fast and Furious movies, which is either going to be a 2-parter or a 3-parter, depending on what day of the week Vin Diesel says it is. And then you've got this one being a 2-parter, and I think this was touted as the send-off for Ethan, but then I think they've kind of backpedaled on that a little. I think Tom Cruise said he'll keep making them. If people want to see him, he'll keep making them. Director as well, Christopher McQuarrie, has mentioned that it's not going to be the last 2, but it does seem strange that out of nowhere in the franchise they're just doing a 2-parter. Usually that does spell something kind of final for me if they're dragging the story out for 2 films. Let me just go back to you guys' comments. So I hope that kind of answered your question. Yeah, in terms of, I still enjoyed it. I do have some problems with it. I think that it is probably a little bit overstuffed, maybe a little bit overblown, and the runtime, it is pushing 3 hours. It's up there. It's 163 minutes. So with trailers at the theaters, you're looking at 3 hours for this one. I don't think it needed to be that. Maybe it does feel a little bit self-important, and there are points in the movie where the plot does kind of get a little bit convoluted, but I'll kind of, that's kind of a thing with all of these spy movies, in that you start out with a clear objective, and then it kind of branches into, oh, we need to find this person, oh, but before we get to that person, it's like playing Skyrim. It opens up all of these side quests, and it's meandering story which is kind of skirting around the main through line of the plot, and you get that with the Bond films, and you have got that with the previous Mission Impossible films. There is some convenience to the writing and certain things that happen there. And I guess you can kind of shrug it off like, oh, it's an action movie, switch your brain off. But I was like, oh, that's kind of lazy writing in some parts of this. Especially with the villain. And there's a certain moment at the end where just, you know, the planets align and Cruise just happens to save a character by pure fluke and pure convenience, and then saves himself seconds after that by pure convenience as well. So it's that part I just went like, ugh. You know, I would have written it differently to that. Just don't put a character in that situation if your only way of getting them out of that situation is to write it. And saying that, I did have elements of that even with Top Gun Maverick. And speaking of Top Gun Maverick, I do think the overwhelming success of that movie is going to have a big impact on this one. I don't think this film is going to fall into the same trap of the likes of Indiana Jones or The Flash, where they're a huge box office flop. This has got to make a lot of money, though. I didn't realise the budget was 290 million. This isn't a bad-looking movie. There's a lot of special effects in there, especially in the finale, and that did kind of take away my enjoyment a little bit from the third act action set piece. But I didn't realise it was 290 million, so adding almost double on that for marketing, and there's been a lot of marketing for this movie. This movie probably needs about 500 mil to break even. I'm just going to look at how much Mission Impossible Fallout made. Made 791 million, so if this is anything to go off, and I do think that this is going to make a lot of money anyway from the hype and the massive success of the previous Top Gun film, I think that is going to carry over to this one. And it will be interesting to see if it is a success, because movies aren't doing very well at the moment. There's been a lot of bad movies, and I think people are just kind of wising up to it now. I think there has been a shift this year. Disney are never going to go anywhere. You know, you're never going to see Disney go bankrupt, but they are feeling the pinch at the moment. The last few movies they've put out have all been, haven't been a financial success or a critical success. And they're feeling that now. Disney Plus has lost a lot of subscribers. Warner Brothers is having to sell Batman stuff off to recoup costs. And The Flash has lost them around 200 million. And I don't think you're going to get that with this one. This one will make its money back. And if it does, it'll just show you that audiences are looking for an entertaining movie at the cinemas. And that's what this one was. It felt like a proper movie. There's no political stuff in there, as in, pushing agendas, pushing this and that. You don't go to the fucking movies for that. And Tom Cruise knows how to make a movie. This is produced by Tom Cruise. There's the audio out there of him during the whole pandemic COVID thing, and he's having people have compared him to his character from Tropic Thunder, having to go at some of the crew there for not following regulations because the filming had been delayed, and this film's had a trouble production. It really has, with the whole lockdown thing. It was pushed back, I think, almost a whole year. And then there was also a big to-do with the final set piece of this movie, where they were going to film it. They were looking for a train bridge to film at, and I think the intention was to demolish it, was to blow it up, to bring the pyrotechnics in. I think it was in Poland, if I remember rightly, and there was a big to-do with the whole conservation of the place and the history of the bridge, and it dating back to the war and everything like that. And I think there was legal action taken against the director and the company. Because they would, as far as I know, I think they did say that they weren't going to do this, but they quite clearly were. Allegedly, maybe. I don't know. What the fuck do I know? But I think it was quite clear that they were going to go there to blow up that bridge and to film it. And from what I heard, the studio wasn't going to recoup the cost of building another bridge or repairing the damage. They were just going to blow that bridge up in the middle of Poland and get the fuck out of there. As far as I'm aware from what I've read, there's probably a lot more to it than that. But yeah, this has had a troubled production. And I'm actually wondering if that's had a knock-on with how much CGI is used in the ending. Because there's a lot of effects, and there's been CGI in the other ones. There has. I remember a big set piece in Mission Impossible Fallout where, you got the helicopter at the end when it's dangling off the cliff, but there's the whole thing where they're having to parachute, aren't they? They're having to skydive, and they've got to get to a really, really low altitude so that they don't get detected, and there's a big thunderstorm and rain cloud happening, and it's my point is that there's been CGI in the previous movies, but I don't know, there was just something about and maybe it's coming hot off the heels of Dial of Destiny or something, which opens with that really CGI filled terrible opening train chase at the beginning of Dial of Destiny that looks like it's made by artificial intelligence. And what I did find, which is an interesting comparison to this actually, is that it was filmed in the same location, the same train bridge. I think there was almost like a clash of filming at one point, with Indiana Jones filming its title sequence and then them filming their sequence from this one. I just thought that was worth noting. I'm going to get into specifics more in just a second. I'm just going to reply to some of you guys' comments. Let me just catch up. We've got Bath Time with Vaughn. I haven't seen it. Is it worth seeing? Hope you're doing well. I haven't had a notification for weeks. Oh, okay. I don't know why notifications aren't working. I'll say really you haven't missed much, because unfortunately, as I mentioned at the beginning, I've been having a lot of stream problems on here with StreamYard that I used to use. I think it was like the bit rate, and my video was lagging and cutting out, and it's basically made my last few videos completely unwatchable, which is a real shame because I had a blast doing the reviews for that. And yeah, there was some interesting points discussed in that, and it's a shame that people can't get to watch that. And I didn't get notified on StreamYard that there were any problems with it, so we're using some new software now, and I did a test last night. I streamed for about an hour and a half, and from what everyone was saying, it's been absolutely fine. So I don't know, if you haven't done so already, I guess just make sure you've hit the bell icon and stuff, because I think that's the way that you get notifications. But if you have already done so, I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe it's the YouTube powers that be are against me. Who knows? Derpy Entertainment says, is the cliffhanger worth it? I mean, I guess so. It's, as I say, it's not like a huge dramatic cliffhanger. There's no sort of massive revelation. There's no big twist. There's no gotcha moment at the end. There's no cut to black and everyone losing their minds. It's not that kind of cliffhanger. It kind of ends, and they're just like, okay, we know what we need to do, and we're gonna go there and do the thing, and then we hit the credits. So we know where it's going, and yeah, so there's no big revelation or anything at the end. So don't expect like a big dramatic ending in terms of where it leaves us off for part 2, which is kind of going with what I'm saying, that I don't at the moment. I'm gonna have to see part 2 before I can make a overall judgment on this, because it is a complete story as it stands right now. Because there isn't a big dramatic ending, I don't see why this needs to be 2 parts. The only reason that I can think that they've done a 2-part is that it is going to be a send-off for Ethan's character. These are going to be the final 2 Mission Impossible films as we know it, unless it eventually gets rebooted or it continues in some other way. But this is going to be like the last 2 films that Tom Cruise does as the character of Ethan. I mean, he's getting up there. He still looks great, though. The dude hasn't aged. There's moments in this film where there's actually a lot of references, and there's 2 characters that I'm aware of that come back from the first Mission Impossible movie. You've got and these are in the trailer as well, so this isn't a spoiler. You've got the character of Kittredge, who was the old director of the IMF, and we last saw him in the first Mission Impossible movie. The villain of this film is the character of Gabriel, who was in the first Mission Impossible film as well. I believe it's the same actor. I am actually just going to check to make sure it is him. No, okay, it's not the same actor. It doesn't look like it's the same actor, which I'm actually really surprised about. But it is referring to a character. Sorry, I'm just having a look. Yeah, no, it's referring to a character who was in the first Mission Impossible movie. So, yeah, it's kind of tying it all together. It feels like it's coming full circle, and you're getting all of these callbacks and characters from the very original film, as well as some of the last few that are returning as well. Still no Jeremy Renner. There's still no explanation what happened to his character, I will say that. There's some decisions in the film as well. I don't feel like every character gets a time to shine in this one, with one character in particular. And I don't know if mentioning that character is going to be a spoiler in some way, so I'm going to save that for my spoiler chat towards the end. But there's a character who's been quite prominent in the last few installments really doesn't get that much to do in this one, which I think is a shame, because I think they're a really good actor. And yeah, I was a little let down by the lack of screen time of that character. Sorry, I'm just going to try and catch up with more of your comments. Bath Time says, and again, I really wish I could bring up some of these comments actually on the screen. I'm going to keep looking into that, guy, so just bear with me. Bath Time says, I've always thought Tom Cruise would make a interesting Feanor. Huh, I've never even thought about him being in a Middle-earth thing like that. He's a very good actor. I will say that Tom Cruise brings it, and he's such a professional, regardless of what he does in his personal life with Scientology and whatever other fucking weird shit he's doing. You know, he's absolutely trained himself for the Hollywood lifestyle. I think someone was quoted saying that He has the most beaming smile, but there's nothing behind the eyes. He's almost like a complete sociopath. And I could absolutely believe that. I will say he's very good with his fans. I went to the Mission Impossible Fallout premiere in London, and I got a photo with him, which was great. I got a signature from him as well, and he did stop for everyone. And I did hear that about him, actually. He made sure that he signed for everyone, that he got a picture with everyone. He took the time for his fans, and that goes a long way with me. So whatever dodgy shit that he does, or allegedly, whatever stuff he gets up to, and if he is a complete sociopath with the Hollywood system, maybe he is, maybe he isn't, I don't know. But if he is, regardless, what I will say is that he's so great with his fans, and I fucking respect that. And he's an absolute master of his craft. He knows how to make a movie, knows how to produce a movie, and he knows the kind of quality that's expected, and he gets the job done. He gets it done. Look at Top Gun Maverick, easily one of the best films in the last 5 years. I would say it's up there. It might even be in my top 3. Because movies are kind of going the way of the toilet at the moment, I always feel like. So it's always nice to come out of the movies just feeling elated, like you've seen something special. Let's see, but in terms of him playing Feodor, I don't know. To me, with Tom Cruise, as I say, he's a great actor, but every time I see him in something, I always just see Tom Cruise. I don't see a character. You look at the Lord of the Rings and all of those actors, and yeah, you got famous actors in there. You know, you got Ian McKellen, you got Christopher Lee, you got Cate Blanchett, you got all these wonderful actors. But when I mention them from Lord of the Rings, I say that's Gandalf, that's Saruman, that's Galadriel. Whereas if Tom Cruise was in the Silmarillion playing Feodor, I'd go, that's Tom Cruise. And it's that star power. He is just an absolute Hollywood legend. He is. He's still an A-lister. And as I say, dude hasn't aged. There's moments in it where it flashes back to stuff from the first movie, and it says like, "Hey, Ethan, you remember this guy from your time when you were first an agent?" And it'll flash back to some footage from the first Mission Impossible film. And yeah, he has aged, obviously, but dude still looks great for his age. I guess that's the power of Hollywood. So whatever Tom Cruise is doing, I need to get on that too. Whether it's a facelift, whether it's Botox, whether it's adrenochrome, whatever it is, I need to get on it. Or maybe it's the stuff that only Scientology money can buy. Derpy says, well, they cut a lot out, though. It was originally over 3.5 hours. Oof. Christ. I'm actually trying to think what they could have cut out, because I will say the movie does move, despite it does feel long. It does feel long, and I don't think it needed to be this long. But it moves at a great pace. There's moments, for example, where there's a character that Tom Cruise is going after. It's Hayley Atwell's character, and she escapes. And she escapes on a plane, and she heads to Rome. And you think, oh, there's going to be like a whole bit now where Tom Cruise has got to regroup with Simon Pegg and Ving Rhames, and they're going to have to try and find out whereabouts in Rome she is, and he's going to be tailing her all across Rome. And that doesn't happen. The very next scene is Tom Cruise in Rome, pretty much meeting her again. He's caught up with her. And I guess that can be seen as a positive. You could say, well, the pacing's really good because we haven't got to concern ourselves with the whole in-between bit. But then I'm thinking, well, narratively, if you have her escape and flee to another country on a plane, there's got to be some downtime in between that. And if all of a sudden he just meets up with her again in the next scene, from a writing standpoint, I'm looking at that thinking, well, you've just arrived at the same circumstance. He was with her character. She escaped. The very next scene, they're back together and escaping together. So it was like, well, why did you need that? Why did you need her escaping? If you need the two characters together for the purpose of the story, don't have her fleeing to another country in between if your intention is to just have them reunite again, literally in the very next scene. So, yeah, there's moments like that in the writing that actually happens quite a bit. And as I say, you can probably view that as like, hey, this movie moves at a great pace, or this could have done with just cutting some of the filler out of it a little bit. Because there are some set pieces in this that do feel like they go on too long. I mentioned that already. There's this car chase, and again, it's very good. And It reminded me actually of Fast 10. Fast 10, I think there's a moment that almost looks like it takes place down exactly the same flight of stairs. The bit in Fast 10 where the big rolling, ticking time bomb. There's a car chase that I swear takes place on that staircase. It might not be that staircase, but it looked very much like it. And as I say, it's a good chase. It's a fine chase, but it feels like it goes on way too long. There's a moment in that car chase where it would have been the perfect time. There's a lull in the action, and you feel like the characters have got to safety, and they kind of like end it with a joke. And I think that would have been the perfect place to end that car chase scene. There's car and bike chases and everything like that, and Ethan's trying to find a safe car to escape the scene because he's being chased by, I think, like the CIA is chasing him or something, and then he's also being chased by another organization as well, and he finds a safe car, which is like this little dinky yellow electric car or something, and there's a bit of humor in there, which is a little bit awkward, but he's having trouble driving this car because he's not used to it, and you think, boom, that's where you'll end that scene. They've got to a safe car, they're off the grid again now. He's crashed the car up a little bit because he doesn't know how to drive it, and then we'll cut to the next scene. But no, then we have a whole other car chase again, and it goes back to the writing thing. If your intention is to just drop them back in another car chase, what was the point in getting them out of another car? They're in a high-speed car chase, they get out of a car during this big shootout, they steal another car, they drive that car, they then say, we need to get rid of this car and we need to get a safe car. They get into a safe car, so they get into a third car, and then there's another chase that happens after that, and then they've got to get out of that car to escape a train. So it just feels prolonged. I don't know if when they said, oh hey, we've got to make this 2 parts, they've gone, right, well, we've got to really drag these sections out to fill the runtime. But as you said, if this was originally 3.5 hours, which I wasn't aware of, that's absolutely crazy to me. I don't know if some of that footage or some of the stuff has been pushed to part 2 maybe, but as far as I know, the intention for this was always to do it as a 2-parter. This wasn't like a last minute decision to drag it out to 2 films. Derpy Entertainment said, is it across the Spider-Verse level cliffhanger? No way. No way. That was dramatic, that was surprising, and when that hit the credits, I could have gone for Beyond the Spider-Verse instantly. I didn't want it to end. So this one, it ends open-endedly. It feels like a sort of conclusive-ish ending for this part 1, but then it does leave some things obviously open for part 2. But no, it's not as dramatic as Across the Spider-Verse. Derpy Entertainment says, I liked Dial of Destiny, though. Okay, well, I'm glad you liked it. I really didn't. So I ranted about it on the channel for a long while, but unfortunately the video's hopelessly glitchy, so you probably won't be able to hear all my thoughts on that. But I got a lot of problems with Dial of Destiny. I'd actually probably struggle to find you a positive in that film. I thought it was a really mean-spirited, depressing, just hopeless movie, really, beginning to end. Terrible action, awful character in Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character, and just a really mean-spirited ending to the character. Again, it's just Disney trying to tear down all of these heroes. But what I will say, Tom Cruise doesn't tear this character down. No way. This isn't your miserable, depressed James Bond who doesn't want to be James Bond and gets fucking blown up and is miserable and is crying all the way through it. This is fucking action star Ethan Hunt, and that's cool. It's cool to see he's still doing what he does best, and I commend that with him. Bath Time says it's fine tonight, don't worry. I always felt cheated that the late 90s film Cliffhanger with Stallone didn't have a cliffhanger. Yeah, I agree with that. Dude, I haven't seen Cliffhanger in so long. I actually heard rumours, I don't know if it's true, that Stallone's coming back to do some kind of follow-up to Cliffhanger, like Cliffhanger 2 or something. Can't imagine how that's going to go down, but he also promised us a Cobra 2 years ago now on his Instagram. He teased the return of Marion Cobretti, and we still haven't got a Cobra 2, and I don't see that happening, so maybe he's just all talk. But yeah, Cliffhanger's a fucking great movie, man. Um, Bath Time says that has to be Simon Pegg. He's got charisma and creepiness, and he's older than... Oh, he's talking about Feanor. Bath Time says, I'd still love to see the alternate reality version of Lord of the Rings with Sean Connery as Gandalf and Nick Cage as Aragorn. Yeah, oh my god, could you imagine that? Nick Cage would be sporting the long hair from his time when he was doing that Superman film that never got off the ground. Sean Connery Gandalf, Scottish Gandalf. All I can think of is John Cleese's Tim character, Tim the Sorcerer from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Yeah, I'm trying to think what else I could talk about this one. So I guess like a rough outline of the plot so you guys sort of know what's going on with this one. The tagline for the movie, when Ethan Hunt and his IMF team are confronted by a mysterious, all-powerful foe known as the Entity, Hunt is forced to consider that nothing can matter more than this mission. Basically, the Entity is like a AI. It's an artificial intelligence that's capable of almost being sentient, self-learning, developing, evolving. You've seen it in 1,000,001 action films. And all these countries want it because if they get it, they've got ultimate mastery of war. And, you know, this thing can be planted like a computer virus. It can dismantle entire countries' defense mechanisms and military and encryptions and everything. It's this ultimate AI technology, and they kind of play on the idea that everything's written, everything's fated. It's kind of playing 4D chess with everyone. It has the capability to understand how someone thinks, predicts their moves, and runs. It's like Doctor Strange with all like millions of different possibilities, and it's always going to get the outcome. But because of that, it does lead to some very, very convenient writing in the film. Which brings me to the villain of this film, which is the character of Gabriel, played by Esai Morales. So he's a terrorist, and he's using this entity because he just wants this system to rule the world, basically. There's not many levels to him. I actually think the original villain of this film was going to be played by Nicholas Hoult, but I think there was some scheduling conflicts with the actor, so they went with Morales instead. He was a friend and ally of Ethan prior to becoming an IMF agent, and actually, I don't know... I'm going to have to go back and watch the first Mission Impossible film again, because it looks like there's flashbacks straight from that movie, and it's been so many years since I watched that film that I don't know if there'd been elements where they'd refilmed some stuff and implemented it into that first film, or if his character is actually in that. But it's not the same actor, so this is making me think like, oh, have they gone back and sort of retconned that first movie to add this character in? And he's a villain in a similar vein as someone like... Bear with me here, because this isn't in terms of the performance. It's not as memorable and it's not as well acted, but like Heath Ledger's Joker in The Dark Knight or Silver from Skyfall, he's one of those villains that has all of these string of events planned out because they can predict what the characters are going to do, but almost to a ridiculous degree. There are certain things like the Joker, it's like, well, how did he know that cop car was going to take that exact right turn down that exact street, which is going to lead to this whole thing? How did he know this was going to happen to this character? And you can kind of sway it with something like that because you can go, oh, it's a comic book movie. But then on the flip side, even with Dark Knight, you go, well, Christopher Nolan's purposely gone out of his way to make this as least comic booky as possible and make it as grounded and real. And the same thing goes with, it sort of came out around the same time, didn't it? It was like 4 years difference between that and Skyfall. Silver's character, again, has all of these things planned out. The bit where he escapes on the London Underground, and then it just so happens to be the right time. He knows Bond's going to follow him down there because right at that moment, at that 1 second, the train is going to crash down, and all of these conveniences that add up that if you really look into the movie, you'd just go, there is no way that this character could predict this. That you can't predict all of these events out like this. And it's the same with this character, and they kind of do it under the veil of this entity, this algorithm he's using that is helping him predict all of these outcomes. But I don't know, it just gets downright lazy in some parts. There's a big foot chase in Rome in this movie. Oh, it's Venice, I think it is, they go to. And it's the scene in the trailer where Tom Cruise is doing the run. He does the run so much in this movie. It's great. I love it. I love Tom Cruise's run. And like the Joker, I'm not going to go into specifics here. I'm just going to give you the framing. The villain gives the hero the ultimate choice. You know, we've seen it in Spider-Man. We've seen it in Batman Forever. We've seen it in The Dark Knight. It's very similar to Dark Knight. He says, you know, he pits two people that are close to Ethan, and he says, by the end of tonight, one of them's going to go. And you've got to make that choice. And you don't have time to save both of them. And it's like, I've seen this before. And then when it pans out, I'm not going to say what two characters they are. I'm like, well, how did that character know that Gabriel was going to be there, specifically on that bridge at that time? Because before that, they meet up with Vanessa Kirby's character. So it's great to see her back. I really like her character, actually. I think she was last in 4, I think. And they refer to stuff from Ghost Protocol as well, which was great. They meet up with her, and things go awry, and Tom Cruise says to everyone around him, just, you know, make your own way out of here, just get out of here. And I might have missed something in the film, but as far as I know, everyone just kind of runs in different directions. But then, so that the villain's plan can come to fruition, where one of his close people around him has got to die, they end up in that situation, and Gabriel's just like, I told you it would end this way, Ethan. You can't outsmart me. You can't outsmart the entity. I am everywhere. I am Legion, kind of thing. It's like, yeah, but how did that character know that you were going to be there? Because before this, you all just kind of escaped. You know, that character could have escaped on a gondola and like in a completely different part of the city. Why did it have to be there? Speaking of which, there's a henchwoman character in this film played by Pom Klementieff, Mantis from the Marvel movies. I actually didn't realize it was her. I recognized the name, and I couldn't remember where I recognized the name from. She's a French assassin in this movie. She's actually really fucking good. She's in a lot of the fist fights with Ethan, and yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with that character moving into the next one, because the character gets a real arc as well, considering she's just kind of a henchwoman character in this one. I imagine she's probably going to get more to do in the next one. Let me just read more of you guys' characters. Did I just say let me read more of your guys' characters? More of your comments, sorry. Jesus, I'm so tired. Bath Time says Nick Cage doing that speech at the Black Gate would be epic. Yeah, it would. I want to see that. I wonder if someone's done like a deep fake of Nick Cage in Lord of the Rings, or even Sean Connery as Gandalf. I'd be interested to see that, because deep fake technology is getting so good now. Other cast members, actually, I was really surprised to see in this was Cary Elwes. I didn't realise he was in the movie. He plays the director of the National Intelligence, Denlinger. You've got a surprise appearance from Mark Gatiss as well, from The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, British comedian, British actor. Really, really good comedian, and fantastic writer. Of course, he's in BBC Sherlock as well. You've got the one who played, oh god, I can't remember her name now. She was in Game of Thrones with Oberyn Martell. She was his paramour. The one who screams when he gets his head crushed. Indira Varma, I think the character's name is. She was in it too. And you've got Charles Parnell as well, who was in Top Gun Maverick. And I thought, oh, okay, so, you know, he's a friend of Tom Cruise. He got him a part in the movie. But it's just this random sort of group of, you know, elites, I guess, from all different intelligence agencies that meet up to discuss dodgy shit. And yeah, I was like, oh, you got Mark Gatiss, you've got Indira Varma, like, you've got all these characters. I was like, who did he just call in some favors? Just called in his friends to shoot that day? Were they just in the area? And they're not in the movie for very long, but yeah, seeing Cary Elwes again, it was great. I think actually he's coming to Liverpool Comic Con later this year. I think it's Liverpool Comic Con, so yeah, it's cool. I always like, well, obviously Princess Bride's a massive one, but I love him in the Saw movies as well, and Men in Tights as well. He's great in that. I love Cary Elwes. He's fantastic. What else can I say? What else can I say? There's some more. There's other convenient bits in the movie as well. This might be a spoiler, but it's. I'm not gonna go. It's not like a massive film-changing spoiler or anything like that. There's a moment towards the end of the film when they're on the Orient Express on the train where Hayley Atwell's put in this position where she's the ploy, basically. She disguises herself as another character to make this business transaction, and her cover's blown, and she's surrounded, and they've got her at gunpoint, and just as they're about to pull the trigger, Tom Cruise parachutes and crash lands through that side of the plane and takes out the guy who was about to shoot her. He didn't intend to crash through that window. He wasn't trying to save her. He was just trying to get onto the train. And just right at that split second, at that moment, he crashes through that specific window in that specific carriage and takes out that one specific guy. He didn't crash into Hayley Atwell. That would have been hilarious. He would have just taken her the fuck out. No, so that was really lazy writing to me. I was like, look, don't put this character in this predicament if that's your only way to get them out. It's like divine intervention of Tom Cruise crashing through the side of the train. And then right after that, so there's two guys with guns trained on us, so he takes the one out when he crashes through, and then the other guy is right behind him and is about to shoot him. And his parachute's still like stuck out of the window, so he's parachuted through the window, and the chute's still like dragging outside the plane. And it deploys again as he's in the train, which pulls him back, and as it throws him back against the wall, he hits the other guy, which takes the other guy out. So I thought that was really lazy. Again, people will probably watch that and go like, haha, it will get a laugh, or you kind of shrug it off like, oh, it's an action movie, it's convenient. But I don't know, that was really lazy to me. And there's quite a few moments that happen in the movie like that, and I don't remember that happening as much in the previous movies. I know there's always a ticking clock where everything always stops at the 1 second, and there's another example in that of this as well, with a bomb that's about to go off and they the 1 second left. That's fine. That's kind of like the spy genre, and there's even moments like that in Top Gun Maverick where, and don't get me wrong, I love Top Gun Maverick, but there are moments in there where I do think the writing is a little bit poor. There's one moment at the very beginning of that film where he's testing this new high-powered jet that's going to like break into the stratosphere, and they've got to prove that they can get to Mach 10 in this plane, so that their operations don't get shut down. And Maverick hits Mach 10, but he always wants to go one step beyond, and he pushes it to 10.1, 10.2, and it keeps climbing. Then all of a sudden, the plane fucking crashes like off course, and he's thrown unconscious, and he's traveling at light speed. And then the film just cuts to black. It doesn't know how to write him out of that situation. It doesn't know how to have him regain consciousness, control that plane, and explain away how he survives. So the film cuts to black, and then it kind of peppers it off at the end with a little joke where this little kid thinks he's like a space alien. He's crashed in buttfuck nowhere in a desert, and he requests a glass of water. It reminds me of the scene from Kill Bill 2, actually, after she breaks out of being buried alive, and she goes to that off the road diner thing and just says, "May I have a glass of water?" It's a similar thing to that. But I thought, oh, that's kind of lazy. Just don't put him in that situation if you don't know how to write him out of it effectively. And then towards the end, the runway, the Russian runway, or wherever it is they're fighting, I think it's meant to be Russia, isn't it, or something. The US absolutely nukes that airfield, that runway, so that there are no planes that the enemies can use to either escape or attack with, and they just absolutely demolish it. But then when Tom Cruise is blown out of the sky and crash lands, and he's there with what's the actor's name? It's Miles something, isn't it? Goose's son. They get to that runway, and there's conveniently one plane that is still intact and didn't get blown up, which conveniently hasn't been used by the enemy at that point, which conveniently also happens to be the same plane from the original Top Gun movie for some member berries. And yeah, so I thought that was kind of lazy in Top Gun Maverick. So there's bits of the writing similar to that in this one, where I just think, look, just don't put characters in that situation. If you're not going to write them out of effectively, and you need some like divine intervention that's just going to save them last minute, which is so convenient, like the chances of it happening are infinitesimal, then just don't do it. Find a way around it, write around it. And then that just kind of takes me on to the final action set piece of the movie, really. And it's the one, as I mentioned, you see from the trailer. It's the Orient Express. It's the train carriages where it's going off the bridge. Gabriel blows the bridge. Once again, train times, knowing how fast things are going, knowing where things are planned out. He's planned it out to the nth degree, which seems a little bit extreme. But he blows the bridge, and you see it in the trailer. The train goes over. I actually think they did drop a train off a bridge, but when you see it in the film, maybe apart from one shot, that there's a kind of a similar cinematography technique that they use, like camera technique that they use a lot in this film, where it looks like they've strapped the camera to the side of the vehicle. There's moments where they're driving a car and the camera's kind of outside the car. And they do it with the train as well. It goes over and it looks like a real train being dropped off. But then when it cuts to the wide shot, it looks really digital. So I don't know if it's a blend of both. But, I mean, if they actually did drop a train off into like a quarry or something and they filmed it, I don't think it really translates onto the screen because it does look so digital. And there's so much digital stuff that happens in this ending as well. That it just kind of ran out of steam for me a little bit. No pun intended, because it's a steam engine. But it goes over and you've got Hayley Atwell's character and Tom Cruise in the front carriage. And it's like Inception. It's like dangling off and there's like zero G going on and everything. And they've like got to climb upwards. It's almost like they broke a mirror or something. They're the most unlucky people ever. Everything that could go wrong does go wrong. So they're dangling on, and the carriage, the screw is unhooking, and just as about as to drop, Tom Cruise jumps up and he gets onto the next carriage. But then the train keeps on moving for some reason, and then that carriage is going over the edge as well. But this time it's the kitchen. It's the where they cook everything on the train. So there's vats of boiling, scalding oil bubbling over everywhere and skidding all over the floor. So it's really slippery for them to walk on, and the stoves are all on with fire bursting out of it, and then the gas mains plug pulls out, and it's like, oh no, the carriage is going to explode, and they're trying to climb up this really steep gradient, and they're sliding down it, and just as they get up, boom, the cooker goes off and explodes, and then they're into the next carriage, and guess what? The train then all of a sudden decides to drop that carriage over the edge as well. And you can tell that they're not in this situation. It's them in front of a green screen. And I just don't... I feel like this ending action scene didn't need to be this drawn out or this overblown. Because it took all tension away from me. All of the best bits in the Mission Impossible films were things that were done for real. Stuff like the bit where he launches off on the bike into the quarry for that one shot and his parachute, and you see that in the movie, you can tell that was actually done on camera. Maybe there was some digital enhancements here and there to the landscapes, but it's on camera. He actually did that. Another stuff from the previous movies when he's grabbing onto the wing, a shot of Tom Cruise grabbing onto a wing of a plane that's lifting off is way more impressive to me than any of the digital technical wizardry that goes on in the final action set piece of this movie. It was drawn out. It was really drawn out, and because you can tell that those characters aren't in that situation, it just took me right out of it. It just felt like I was watching actors on a green screen, which I was. So they're climbing up this carriage, and they're dangling off, and he's like, "Don't look down," because it's a sheer drop. And then, as I say, the most unluckiest people, there's a grand piano in there, and because now it's tipped vertically, the piano's dangling by this support that attaches it to the floor, and then that's unhooking, and the hook's sort of like bending, and it's about to drop, and they've got to jump across the carriage to dodge this piano that's going to fall on them, and they jump to the other side, and then they're about to fall out, and just as, the grip's slipping, boom, someone comes and saves them. It just goes on and on and on, and I thought, are you going to do this for every single carriage? Then you got the next one, the next one, the next one, the whole fucking train. Um, yeah. So I didn't think much. And there's another fist fight on the train as well, and the special effects really don't look like they've got much better in the span of 30 years. Oh god. Just saying that the 90s was 30 years ago really, really, really depresses me, actually. But yeah, fuck, it was. The special effects don't look like they've improved much, because he has that whole fight scene on top of the train, doesn't he, in Mission Impossible 1, where you've got it's John Reno, isn't it, in the helicopter that goes through the tunnel, which hasn't aged well in terms of the effects, and it's kind of the similar vein in this one. And this is what reminded me of Indiana Jones, was the whole fist fight on top of a train. You can just tell that they're on a green screen. Yeah, I know they actually did film some stuff in person on a train, and when it cuts back to the wide shots, when it's the wide shots, it looks great. You can tell that there's like a helicopter with a camera filming those two guys on top of that train. But when they're doing all of this crazy action stuff, and you've got those signs that whiz past, anytime you have a scene that's set on top of a train, you're always going to have those like signs like ding 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 ding. You know those things? I don't know what they're called. They're just like the posts, the signals, I guess, the train signals. Yeah. So when they're ducking under those and jumping over them and whatnot, it feels like you're watching Wolverine. Was it? Yeah, it was the Wolverine, wasn't it, where he has that fight on the train. Again, that's a comic book movie. Whereas this one, I'm just watching these two actors in front of a green screen. I know they're not actually on top of a train, and there's no tension. And I keep going back to stunts from, say, the original Indiana Jones trilogy. That scene in Last Crusade where he's on the tank and he's on the turret, and it's like pushing him into the wall, and it's so claustrophobic. He is inches away. That stuntman is like inches away from that wall, and he's got all rubble and sand and dirt piling on top of him, and it's amazing how they filmed that. And some of the car chases from Raiders of the Lost Ark, there's a tangible quality to scenes like that, and it proves that you don't have to have any kind of digital train that's dangling over in one carriage and the next carriage and the next carriage. You don't need stuff like that. You can keep it dead simple, and it can have so much more impact. So, as I say, I know these films have used effects before. Of course they have. That they've used loads of effects before. But I don't know. This to me just kind of felt flat a little bit. It didn't leave me with the same impact that the last one did, Mission Impossible Fallout. Rogue Nation, as of right now, I'm probably going to have to go back and watch them all again, but as of right now, I want to say that number 5, Rogue Nation, is my favourite. I love the Opera House sequence. Rebecca Ferguson's character in that film is incredible, really good femme fatale character. I really like that. The tension of the underwater sequence as well. And Fallout's great, don't get me wrong, Fallout's great. But yeah, this one, I ain't going to say this is a bad film. I know I probably come off as seeming like really down in the dumps about this film. I'm not. It's still a great film, and 7 films in, for it still to be as entertaining as it is, that's testament to it. Tom Cruise knows how to make a movie. You've got Christopher McQuarrie as well, who's a really good director. He's no stranger to this franchise. Lorne Balfe as well, the music. It's very Hans Zimmer-y. There's almost entire portions of the soundtrack that sound like it's ripped straight out of The Dark Knight or The Dark Knight Rises. But that was a similar case to to Mission Impossible Fallout as well. The music in that film was very Dark Knight Rises. In fact, I think Lorne Balfe was a student of Hans Zimmer, or like a protege or something like that, so that stands to reason he's probably got a very similar style. But the Mission Impossible theme, when it kicks in, my god, I just had the biggest smile on my face, and I enjoyed the film beginning to end. I really did. But I just have more, I feel like I've got more problems with this one personally than I have with some of the other entries. 4, 5, 6, absolutely fantastic. Love those films. This one, I'm like, it'll be lower down the list for me. I do want to go back and watch them all again, and maybe I'll do like a ranking video once part 2's out next year. That could be cool to do. Yeah, there's a certain character in this film who I don't really felt got all that much to do, and I've really liked their character in previous ones, and they just kind of write the character out, and I don't like that. Maybe they'll do like a Fast and Furious thing where the character will just come back. But as it stands, it felt like they just dropped their character, and there wasn't really much downtime afterwards to process the loss of that character. I really like Hayley Atwell as well. She looks absolutely... This film is just full of so many attractive women. You got Rebecca Ferguson, you've got Pom, Hayley Atwell, Vanessa Kirby. My God, this film was really spoiling me. But Hayley Atwell is fantastic. She's really good. She's a welcome addition to the franchise, and I'm looking forward to part 2. But as it stands right now, it does feel a little bit overblown. I don't feel this needed to go on for 3 hours. And once part 2 is out, I think someone could probably do a really good edit of this film and just cut it down maybe, and just get it to like a tight... I don't think you could probably cut it down to 2 hours, but maybe you could get away with like one single 3-hour movie or 2.5-hour movie. And I think that'd be good. There's a lot of aspects to it that do feel like a Bond film. You know, it starts off on a submarine that gets attacked, and it felt very much like Tomorrow Never Dies, or something like that. There's a lot of James Bond films that start off with a submarine getting attacked or some kind of thing getting attacked. But yeah, that was Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. Did it live up to my expectations for it? Probably not, but I didn't have a bad time with this film. I still enjoyed it, and it's still probably my second favourite film of this year. Not counting some of the Oscar films, as I mentioned last night, that came out towards the beginning of the year. I know we got those in 2023, but they're very much a 2022 movie, as far as I'm concerned. For me, the best 2 films this year are this one, but above it is Across the Spider-Verse, which I thought was amazing. Other than that, not really many other good films this year, as I discussed last night on my Q&A video. Anything else I can mention about this film? I don't think so. I think I'm all talked out on it, so there's a bunch of stuff I haven't spoiled or gone into depth with. I'd still say go and see this movie. It's a very entertaining movie. It's a good action film, and it's another solid entry in the franchise. Do I want these movies to keep going on? Tom Cruise still looks great. He's still a great leading man. He brings the action, he gives it his all. So I think as long as he can keep doing that, then sure, yeah, keep making them. But because this one's a part 1 and part 2, I'm going to assume that these are probably going to be the last 2. We will have to see, won't we? Anyway, that'll do it for my live stream tonight. I want to say a big thank you to everyone that's tuned in and watched along, or commented along as well. Hopefully I've been helpful with this review. Hopefully you've got some entertainment out of it. When will I be back? Well, the next 2 big films to come out are probably going to be on, I think it's the 21st, isn't it? It's a Friday or whenever it is. You've got the Barbie movie, which I got the full trailer for today, which is either going to be so bad it's good, or it's going to be excellent, or it's just going to be shit. I don't know what to make of it, but I think it's going to be meme-worthy. So that comes out the same day as Oppenheimer. I probably won't be able to get to see both of those films on the opening day, but I'll certainly get to see one of them. I'll have reviews for both of those, but that won't be the next time that I live stream. I mentioned last night I want to try and get into at least one live stream a week, probably towards the end of the week, or obviously if a film's released like today on the day, I'll try and get a review for it. So yeah, that probably next week. I might do some more Lord of the Rings content. I might try and do a Lord of the Rings live stream of some kind, maybe like a ranking list, or my top favorite scenes in the Lord of the Rings. I don't know. I'll think of something to do. But I will be back next week sometime. Hope you're all doing well, staying safe, being awesome, taking it one day at a time. Of course, I appreciate all of you guys for tuning in, as you always do, commenting along. It really means the world to me. And yeah, let's just keep pushing. We're just going to keep bringing the content to you guys. I'm going to try and see if I can jazz up the screen a little bit. As I say, I'm new to Streamlabs, so I'm going to try and see if I can bring up comments on screen. I'm going to try and see if I can have banners going across the bottom and things like that. But at least for right now, at least I have a video that isn't glitching and is fine, and I can still live stream to you guys, and I can still chat to you guys. So that's the main thing, right? So yeah, that'll do it for me tonight. I am going to sign out, so hope you all have a very good night, and I will catch you on the next stream. Take care, everyone.